All right. I'll start delving in a bit into the topic and starting the presentation. So today is about a topic that I see many composers across many levels struggle with, right? You're a beginner, intermediate, professional. Pitching and presenting yourself always is going to be a daunting point because you can be super talented and have the best music in your line, but if you do not know how to present yourself, you can't get noticed. So let's start with the first thing, which is social media. Um, Platform and strategy, right? So social media has become one of the easiest ways to network with people across the world. You have pretty much 8 billion people on this one platform, or less or more. And it has become a really easy way for you to start learning networking with a very low bar, right? You can just send a message, a DM. Yet these things do matter because you want to set a good presentation. So with every platform, there's a different networking strategy. A lot of people do all these platforms to get as much eyes on them. So they do TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. They try to get it all. The problem with that is if you go too vast, right? You go too vast, you do not know how to network properly because all of these platforms work differently to get your content out, to get your word out, your name, anything. So it's important to choose two or one platform to really hone yourself in. I personally use Instagram and YouTube. Why? Because Instagram is short form and it is a very quick and easy way to network, right? You just go to the profile, see their work, analyze their work, do a good DM, and go from there. YouTube is not really a networking platform, but it allows for very good long form content, which you can then link to your Instagram. And I'm talking purely out of the networking area now. I'm not talking about content or getting your views or any of that, just purely how to network properly. So those are my two platforms. A few other ones that are good are also Facebook, and this is something that people say for jokes, but it is really true. Facebook has an older audience than Instagram, so it really depends what you're targeting on. If you're trying to target more professionals, more high-end people, you try to do some Facebook and you try to do some LinkedIn, for instance. Those are the platforms for those type of people. Are you trying to target a bit more young and more entrepreneurial mind, ready to go, getting into the business type people, you go to Instagram, you go to these other platforms. So it's important before you do any of this to write down who is the person you're trying to reach to, right? Are it directors? Are it filmmakers? Are it students that want to do a film with you? Like, who is your person? And then analyze, okay, which platforms have the highest amount of this audience so that I can reach them. So that's the first thing. Here, as I say, Instagram for short clips, snippets, process content, YouTube for full work. So this is already going to the content, not much the networking. And as I say here, focusing on two platforms means you know them from the inside out, both for creation and networking. As I say, with anything, if you spread your knowledge too wide, let's say another example, if you do music and you're trying to get all the genres at the best level, it's going to take you very, 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 very long to learn them to the max instead of focusing on two that you know out of your mouth, right? You know them immediately. So that's the first thing. The next thing is one of the biggest bottlenecks I see composers getting into and producers as well when they start creating content. They think the client wants to see the finished work, right? The composition fully worked, fully finished, just this awesome piece of work that they can show and it sounds amazing, right? I think that's right to a certain degree. Of course, clients want to see the finished work and they want to hear the music. But what also matters is that people see who you are, who they're getting into a working relationship with. Because when you start to see someone's profile, not only are you seeing their finished work, but you're seeing what type of person is. Are they community driven? Are they communicative? Are they driven? Are they I already said that. Are they compassionate? Are they empathetic? You know, what type of person are they going to work with? Because you can make really good music, really good finished works, but if you're not a nice person to work with, then there's no relationship there, right? So it's important that when you make a professional channel, it really shows what type of person you are, not only on the professional career side that you have good work, but also the type of person you are. How could you show this, you may ask? Well, think about process content. You working on a track and you're there for 2 hours, right? put a camera somewhere, and it will record just parts of you. How are you? Let me phrase it differently. One of the best ways to show what type of person you are is recording yourself working. So what I sometimes do is I set up a camera and I just am recording myself when I'm talking to a client or someone like this. It already shows the way you communicate, even if there's no sound. That's one of the easiest ways that I do, because you're already working, and after your work session, you already have 2 hours of footage. So that's really convenient. Another way of doing this is pretty much explaining your score or your production through Instagram, explaining your thought process when you make music, how you take an idea to a fully fledged work. So that's also another way. And there's many, many other ways that I will not be able to explain because they haven't been invented, or you're just unique. You bring something new to the world, right? So that's one thing. As I say here, show your personality. Are you calm under pressure? That's actually one of the most important things. I always see directors telling me like, yo, we have a deadline for 3 days. We need this finished quickly. And they need to know that you can do this beforehand, before they ask you like something like this, because otherwise they'll just send it to someone else who they know already does this. How do they know? Because the person has proven it. Maybe through a meeting, maybe through their channel, but these things are important to showcase, right? So lastly, as I say here, content ideas that work. Studio, walkthrough, typical work day, how you prep a new project, scoring a scene in real time. These are all type of ideas to let you go loose, right? So let's go to the next presentation page. Thumbnails and profile optimization. Now, there's 2 parts to content. There is reels and posts. Posts are already the thumbnail, right? They're already the forefront of what people see. Reels, on the other hand, are a video that doesn't really have a standard thumbnail. So some people don't make thumbnails, and that's fine. Some people do. I personally kind of switch around between them. What a thumbnail does is pretty much make a presentation for the people who need to see that video, right? And it's very important that it's clean and intriguing. You don't want just to show a picture of your dog. The more context you add to the thumbnail, the more intrigue you create to the content behind it. With posts, it's a different world, of course, because then if the first post or the first post of your carousel isn't good, then, I mean, it goes hand in hand. Your post should already be good looking from the get-go. Reels, sometimes there's some parts in the scene where it's you opening your mouth in the middle of the scene, and you maybe do not want that on the first forefront. So then you can create a thumbnail. So that's always important. As I say here, add text overlays, make people curious. You can add some relatability, some humanity into it. So your studio at 11 p.m., these things all work. But it's what's in your style, what's something that you'd like to present of yourself as a professional. As I say lastly here, people don't care about you until you give them a reason to. The thumbnail is the reason. Same thing with music on Spotify, Apple Music. You can have the best track, but if you do not have a good thumbnail, or in other words, a cover, people won't click on it. Same here. So let's go to the next. Questions. If you have any questions, this is your moment. Put them in the chat. I'll gladly answer them. No pressure, of course. Take a minute for this. A few of the topics, if you can't remember, we talked about which platforms to choose. We talked about what type of content to do. We talked about thumbnails. Maybe you can ask a question about what's lacking in your profile. What do you think, could be something that you'd like to improve in your profile, but you don't know how? This is the time to do that, since the next part where we're going to go is websites. So it's a different angle. I think I can see some people writing. Do I need to be good at video editing? This is a very good question, because I know that composers have a lot of faces nowadays. We're not only a composer, we're a video editor, we're a marketer, we are a photo editor, we're everything. And that's due to this generation where we live in, where social media is our best weapon of choice. So to answer your question, video editing, you don't have to be a professional. Let's just put it that way. You have to be good enough so that you can make yourself look clean, right? You want to be good at formatting, so that when you post on social media, you want to do vertical shots. You don't want to do landscape because you're showing less. You want to create clean cuts. So you can do this in any type of editor. Instagram has a really good editor called Edits. You can do this in the most professionals to the most basics. It really isn't complex editing. When you're trying to do a process of your day, it's literally just putting a few scenes next to each other. Of course, you don't want to create a trash video, but like really the editing required for these type of videos is very minimal. So I hope that answers your questions. Let me know if it doesn't. Do you use third-party plugin like OBS or screen record on your computer? Okay, so I personally don't use OBS. I use QuickTime Player because it's already native to Apple. And through QuickTime Player, you can do many things, right? You can take screenshots or screen recordings, and then you can also select what type of inputs you want to have or outputs. So when you're recording your screen, you can select the input for max so that you can hear the sound of your DAW. So that's usually what I do. Let's say I record for a brand like Spitfire Audio and I need to showcase their plugin. I would just select the screen I want to record. I record it. That's it. But my friends on Windows, they do use OBS a lot, and I've heard it's amazing. So how long should a video be on Instagram? This really depends on the video you're trying to do. Say you're trying to do an explanatory type of video for your day-to-day work life or your workflow. It can take around, what, 90 seconds? That's what Instagram usually recommends, just because then you're still within what the algorithm favors. Anything longer than that, it could still get views, but the algorithm will likely not push it. Say you're trying to do a video where the knowledge is within the caption, meaning that you're not saying anything and it's just a title of you wanting to say something, and the text is in the caption, then it can be anything under 7 seconds. That's what the algorithm favors. Anything longer than that, the algorithm will think it's an explanatory video. So there's these little fine lines about video length that are good to always know. So yeah, I hope that answers it. How to plan and organize your content so that it's not only spontaneous and without consistency. Let me read that one more time. How to plan and organize your content so that it's not only spontaneous and without consistency. Okay, that's a good question. And it's one that I personally also sometimes struggle with because I try a lot of techniques just to see what works best. And it's also not only about what works best, but what you can personally obtain, because we're human. We have maybe a side job, we maybe have some other things that we want to attend to on our weekly lives. So you have to figure out what's a balance of amount of content that you can push out on a weekly basis that is not only good, like enough, like Instagram usually requires anything above 2 per week, and you can choose a few days to set. But that is also not too much for you, right? Because everyone's saying, oh yeah, you should post every day because the algorithm will like it. They will, but the algorithm also likes anything above 2 videos, anything above 3, anything above 4, right? It doesn't have to be set 7. It depends on what you want to reach at what time. You post 2 times a day, every day for a whole year, you will get a way, way larger amount of reach than when you post 2 videos a week. But again, we're human. So you have to see what works for you. What's your balance? All right. Yeah, of course. All right. All right. Okay. So now next chapter. I think, right? Let me check one more time. Did I cover everything? Yeah, cool. Okay. Your website. This is very important because once people see your content on Instagram, where do they likely go? They go to your website. This is your more professional, more custom place to showcase your work. And it's a very important one because this is where you have to show immediately your professional side. They already know what type of empathetic person you are. Now it's really to the work itself. So one of the most important things when creating a website is you're not a digital designer, you're a composer. So the first thing that you should show is your music. Because I see a lot of composers and producers making these sick websites on Wix with animated things. That's all cool and all, but if you are not showing your work fast enough, people will just click away and lose interest. So be sure that when you create a website, to have your music as fast as possible. It can have a button between, right? I'm not saying it has to be the first page, but make it very intuitive, very easy for the client to understand. Oh, it's there. Let me click there. Boom, music. So that's the first thing. As I say here, clear labels: work, music, not portfolio, because that's a bit vague. You don't want them to think, oh, I have to read through text. Oh, I don't want that. You want to have clear words, so work, music, scores, soundtracks, even stuff like that, right? You don't want them to guess because then people, for some for some reason they don't like to guess and they just want to get to it straight away. So that's the first. Simple and beautiful, or no, different. Simple is more important than beautiful in most cases. So if you have a clean, fast, obvious site, it beats a stunning website. And I'm not saying you should have an ugly website, not at all. Please make a good looking website, but be sure to prioritize first how intuitive it is, then how aesthetic it is. There we go. Your bio should say what you do, not just who you are. I score short films, trailers for independent directors is more useful than passionate composer based in Amsterdam. What I'm trying to say here is that when you make a bio all about yourself and your past and like this whole thing, it's not really relevant. You want to say what you're doing in your job. What's your work really? Are you a composer for cinematic scores? You're a composer for heavy metal? Or like what's your stuff, right? You want to have that in the forefront. Everything else later can be about, yeah, and I also am half Costa Rican, half from the Netherlands. That's all relevant later. First, what you do. Second, who you are. Lastly, this is very self-explanatory. It goes to the same thing as the music thing, right? If your contact is not easy to find, people won't make the effort to look for it. So work and context should be the most basic, easy things to get to in your website. Okay, next one. Your portfolio specialized. So what I mean in this page is when you have your work page and you have your compositions, it's important to think about what pieces you want to put in there, because you don't want to put a whole ass directory or a whole catalog of all your pieces. You'll in the beginner mindset, you think, oh, but I want my director to hear everything. I want my client to know all of the things I do. The client wants specialty. They want to know that you are specialized, that you are honed into something so that your skill is more honed into that specific genre. So when I make a website for myself, I try to think, okay, what do I want to showcase as a composer? What are the things that I mainly want to showcase that I do? Because I don't want to score everything. I prefer to score what I truly like to score. So I choose cinematic, epic, intimate, these type of key genres or names, if you want to call that. And then I see which pieces work with that. Once I have chosen 20 pieces that I like that are in that spectrum, then you have to show out of those 20 pieces, 6 to 10 pieces that really showcase your best type of melodic ideas, your best type of expression of emotion, so that they don't go looking through every single one of those tracks. Then, if you have a long intro in your piece, people are going to get bored. So it's important you cut it to the point where they can immediately hear the main work. This is how you present your main type of melodic themes immediately. Yeah, think of each piece as a different flavor of you: emotional, epic, intimate, experimental. So I do 6 to 8, and I try to section it like this. So 2 for intimate, 2 for cinematic / epic, and then 2 for mysterious. You can do any type of separation, right? But this is how I do it. Directors should leave knowing exactly what kind of composer you are. That's it in one word, in one phrase. That's exactly what it should be. Questions? Any questions? Any questions? How to choose music? How to set up a website? Maybe some website builders you'd like recommendations of? I personally use card.co. I'll share it in the chat for you guys to check out. What I personally like a lot about this website builder, it's a one-pager. So it's easy to build. It doesn't require too many tools and getting to know. I think one of the biggest bottlenecks of composers is not wanting to do anything else than composing, and that you have to learn a whole new skill. You want to focus on composing. So having tools that are very intuitive to use is always important. A little recommendation there. Okay. Language to use. That's a question I got. but I don't understand it. Could you elaborate maybe a bit more? Again, no questions, dumb, right? We all, like, ask anything. Okay. How long is a track recommended to be on the website? Good question. It really, let me see. Yeah, okay, so some tracks, for them to get to the main idea, they need a bit of back end to like support the main idea. Otherwise, they feel empty, right? It's a bit of a psychological science, because some tracks you're building up to, and then the main theme hits hard. If you remove the side where you're trying to build up to, then it's a bit weird, because then it's just a main theme that doesn't have that, that power. So think about the intro. That's usually a bit of introduction to the melody. I usually cut that away and I start immediately at the build up part. Then the build up goes to the main theme, and then you can cut mid main theme away. So you probably do a few repetitions of main theme. You can then only do one part of the main theme. That's how I usually structure it. And then time wise, I would say anything under 2 minutes is good. Anything under 2 minutes. Why? Because if the track is too long, they'll keep hearing the same track, and you want the director to see all the pieces, preferably, so that they know that you have a vast skill set. If they stay too long on the track, they'll get bored and they'll move on. Next question. Can be one piece of music be a playlist? For example, link Spotify playlist for emotional work, or should you specialize and pick only 1 to 2 examples? Let me read that one more time. Sorry, I just really want to understand your question. Can be one piece of music a playlist? For example, one link is Spotify playlist of emotional work, or should you specialize and pick only 1 to 2 examples? I would say, yeah, like I previously said, the less the better. You want to really like think about it this way. You don't want to give a food critique all your dishes. You want them to really know what is your expertise. I think as a composer, it's very intriguing to know all the genres, right? And it's good, by the way, because you learn from every single genre that you learn from. You can incorporate it into your own work. I've even taken some things out of heavy metal and put them into my work as a cinematic composer. So all genres work. But when you're presenting yourself to a client, it's important to specialize, because they'll likely be more interested in hiring a specialist rather than a generalist. Because when it comes to a score, and they need a cinematic composer, and this composer says, "Oh no, I can do it all," they're going to choose the person that says, "No, I don't do everything, but I do this one thing very well." So keep that in mind. Okay. Yes, if I attend to the Spanish public who hardly speaks English or Dutch, children who don't speak English. This is a good question, and I've actually had a talk with with one of my students about choosing in which language to speak your content, Sophia. It's important to think about it this way. You would like, okay, no, let me rephrase it differently. I've actually had this bottleneck myself a few times. Should I talk English, which is the most like internationally wide used language, or should I use Spanish, which is my native language? And I chose English just because it represents a larger amount of the client base that I'm trying to reach to. But I've also seen some examples of people speaking English and having Spanish subtitles, or speaking Spanish and having English subtitles. So it really is up to you. I think if you speak English, a person who understands English will probably understand it easier versus if they have to read subtitles. But again, yeah, I think this is up for experimentation. I'm not very well versed in this topic. Okay, Jane, would it work if I specialized in sound design and classical music on a website? Yeah, of course. I mean, pick your professional style, right? If you want to focus on sound design and classical music, that's a style already. Imagine like a super cool neoclassical piece that has all type of sound effects. That could be a really cool style. Presented that way, right? Maybe you can do 2 pieces classical only, two pieces merged, where like this hybrid thing of sound design and classical, and 2 pieces of maybe only sound design. This way you show your versatility within your skill. I hope this answers your question. I guess you already answered my question. Okay, cool. What would you recommend setting up first, social media or website? Definitely website, because that's back end. Everything that happens in social media is for website. You're trying to direct people to your website. Social media goes after, because pretty much see social media as your advert stuff for your work, and then people who are really interested go to your website. Um, so yeah, I hope that answers it. All right. If you guys have any questions, drop them now and I'll answer them later. We're gonna move on. Let me see. Okay. Part 3, how to pitch. Pitching isn't selling, selling pushes, pitching pulls. You're opening a door and not barging through one. This is a very important thing to keep in mind. You don't want to be too pushy when it comes to pitching, because people will pull away. This is psychological science. Also, if people feel that you want something from them, immediate cancel. You want to come into this world with a mindset of creating connections as friendships, not as, oh, I want to connect with you because you're going to do a short film in June and I want to be a part of it. No, I love your work and I want to know more about it. I want to know your thought process. I want to know how you get your stories to be filmed. And they'll be interested and be like, oh, how do you do it? And I'm like, oh, well, I dissect the story. I try to see what time frame it is. Then you get the back and forth, and then somewhere in the line they'll be like, oh, what's your work? Let me hear it. Boom, got your client. So don't barge. Let it happen naturally. So let me see, or strategically, because it has a strategy, right? But naturally strategy. Okay, so as I say here, first principle: make friends, not clients, and they'll become clients. A little rephrasing problem there. The moment someone feels like a target, they step back. The moment someone feels like a peer, they lean in. Literally. The best clients you'll ever have have started as genuine connections. Lead with that energy. Friends become your best collaborators and they refer you to their friends. This is key. Like, I've had this so many times in networking events. I'm literally chatting, I'm holding a drink, and they just, like, you have a natural talk, like you're with your friends, and literally the work will follow itself through because they feel comfortable, they feel in a safe space to get excited with you about something they're working on. So yeah. Okay, email structure. This is a very important one, and I want you guys to, if you have been writing a lot about the last topics, this is the one you want to focus most on. So when you're talking about yourself or about your work, right, in an email, you want as much as possible to dissect their story into your pitch. Because if you're only talking about yourself and your work, it's going to sound too much as an interview. If you start bringing in elements of what they're working on into your pitch, it sounds more like a conversation of actual interest. Templates don't work in this industry. They do not. If you do a template, they will smell it from a mile away. So remove all templates. Think before any client that you reach out to, think 5 minutes or research 5 minutes into what they're doing, what type of projects they're on, and start actually showing genuine interest in that pitch. So of course, brief courtesy is always an important thing, right? Hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing great. How are you doing? Maybe even better because you're actually intrigued in how they're doing. Keep it light, not performative. Introduce yourself as a composer, right? This is logical. They're also interested in you, but they first have to show that you're interested in them. You first give, then you might get. Always super important, being humble. Like, ego is good, and I think ego is really important to use. But if you are too cocky or too self-assured that you are the shit, it just doesn't show what they want, which is someone showing their work, showing their availability, showing that you're an option for them to pursue with. The CTA, if people don't know what CTA is, it's call to action. Is very important that you don't do it like, let's call next Friday. No, you want to make it that they have freedom, yet that you don't lose them in an email thread. So how do you do that? You show a few options. You say May 3rd, May 5th, like, hey, let's call, or do you have any availability May 3rd, May 5th? If you do, let me know, and I'll make a call with you. Why do you do a few dates, and why do you not just say, let's do next Friday? Because if you do a few dates and do not push them in any way, those dates will stay in the mind. Like, psychologically, those dates will hang around with them, and they'll be like, oh yeah, he said next Monday, maybe I can schedule something in. Instead of saying something like next Friday, they're already going to be pushed away. They're going to feel pushed away. So important to keep in mind. As I say here, give them freedom. Options prevent them from losing interest. Freedom prevents them from feeling pushed. This is literally it. Close warmly, kind regards, cheers, your name, done. That's what worked for me many times. Now, very important, don't just make one structure and use it for all your clients. What I like to do most is experiment with a few structures that I make, a few type of templates, if you will, but these templates aren't really templates. They're rather structures that you can change depending on the client you use. What you'll do is you'll send this to 100 clients in a time frame of 3 months or 2 months if you're really crazy. And then you're going to see which structures perform the best. You're going to see which of these structures get the most replies, people feel the most invited and comfortable with. And you can do this by saying, okay, if I send this template to 20 people, this other template to 20 people, what's the percentage of people that answer the most to which? And once you have that answer, you know clearly which structure to use for further clients. So that's my tip when you make any type of structure. Yeah. Oh, lastly, right? You're saying here offering 2 to 3 time slots, you're immediately insinuating to a call. Some people don't like calling. I personally like keep it in the workshop, right? But I personally always prefer to call, because with calling you can get way more an idea of what the client wants, needs, and what type of person they are. So you know what clicks in their clock, you know how they work. Versus in a thread or an email, it's always a bit dry, right? So I always try to go to a call, but if they don't want to, don't push it. That's fine. You'll do with email. Short form pitches, this is very basic. It's the same thing as in emails, but then shorter. And the same type of analogy I did with, you want to treat them as friends, not clients. So with those 2 things in mind, I don't even have to explain this to you. It's very basic. Questions? Any questions? Maybe some questions about how to find your clients, right? I set these topics up not only so that you ask questions about the exact things I explained, but you can venture a bit within that topic, right? So networking, how do I find my clients? Okay. Where would I start to look for potential clients? See, there we go. Awesome. So let me see. I do this in 2 ways. The first one, this is for client directors, right? Short film type of ad trailer stuff, that type of sector. I do it 2 ways. I go on Instagram and I look up a director that I really like. Let's say Sam Calder, right? From that page, you have a thing on Instagram that is pretty much like a little person with a plus on it. What Instagram does is shows people that are like in like the same type of interest of that type of person. So if you have Sam Calder and you press that button, it will show you a few other options like that person. And here's the thing, behind the system of Instagram, the system is built that every time you do that, there's a smaller following. It will show a few big creators also amongst, but it will also show more people that have a smaller following so that you can reach out to them easier. And pretty much this is a funnel system. So for every time you do that, you click a person that you like, then in the next thing, and then you click on that person and you do again that little plus icon, and you go slowly and slowly and slowly to lower size directors until you meet someone that you can reach out to who is the same size as you or maybe a bit bigger, you know. But that's a great way to find people more in your scale. Secondly, I am a big fan of looking into film festival websites, because a lot of the times in these film festival websites, they have forums. And in these forums, the directors themselves are, oh my God, I loved that film of my friend, boom, boom, boom. And then that director also participated in the film festival, and you reach out, you pick their name, and if it doesn't show us social media, you go on the internet and try to find that person through other social medias. So that's the best way how I do it. I hope that answers your question. Generally, how often and how many pitches do you send out on a monthly basis? I try to keep it under 100. since for two reasons. A, because I don't want to get flagged, right? Emails. If you write too many emails, they'll flag you. So I usually try to keep it under 30 to 40 emails in per month on the email. And then on the Instagram, you can go way bigger because it's not only DMs, it's also comments. And the comments don't flag you. Like if you comment on many, many posts, they don't flag you. And when that comment turns into a conversation, they don't flag you. So you can send 20 DMs on Instagram until you get flagged. And then you can also send 100 comments or many more. And those comments turn into conversations and they don't get flagged. So little trick there. Not a question, but I wanted to point out the importance of what you just mentioned in this section. Friends are better than networking acquaintances. You want to be the first person they think about. Absolutely true. It is a thing I live by. If you make friends, they'll probably be your best work buddies. All right, I'll move on because for some reason the Google Meet is gonna end me in 20 minutes. So let me see, networking. Networking is not about collecting contacts, it's about building genuine relationships. Again, we're going to the same thing, right? Friendships are super important. Warm before you knock. Don't cold DM someone out of nowhere, like the post, comment generally. This is something I always do, right? Any type of big client that I want to reach out to never, never, never just barge into their DM, say, hey, no, never. You want to first create familiarity. It's all about psychology. If they see your name in the like posts, in the comments, in a few things, your name will sound familiar. It will sound like someone they know. And most importantly, it will make them feel safe and trusted instead of just cold barging into their door. Very important. By the time you send a message, your name feels familiar feels safe gets a reply. It's not manipulation, it's just how friendships start. Yeah, I mean, literally, in school, you see a person passing by a few times and eventually you'll reach out. In-person networking, by the way, also a really important skill to make because in-person networking relates to how you act on a call. So always keep that in mind. Relax, don't lead with, I'd love to work with you. That's a job interview, not a conversation. Ask about their work, about their process, what decisions went into a specific project. Just being generally interested is the key word in this. You're a composer, you understand creative decisions better than most. Show genuine curiosity, it's disarming and real. Handling rejection without closing doors. Don't accept a no before you actually receive one. Silence isn't rejection. This is a very important thing to keep in mind, right? When you get someone that says, I don't know if I'll have a bit availability to call, you want to be as flexible as possible, but always give options. Always give other routes that person get into. Until they say no, you find a way to make it work. And this is also with clients that say, I don't think you'll be the right fit. Sure, that's totally fine. I'll show you some of my works that are maybe a bit more fitting for this type of project. If it's not a fit, no worries. We keep it until here, and I hope you have a project in the future where I could be a good fit. The reason why you do this is because once you push after a no, right? Like once you push and they say a no and you push, that door will be closed eternally. So it's important when you get a no, you're very respectful and understand the boundary, because maybe in 6 months, they might have a project where you're a good fit and they already know your name. So then when they see your email pop up again, they'll be like, hey, this guy's familiar. I talked with him 6 months ago and now he is a good fit for this project. Cool. So never push after a no. I think this is logical, but I still say it because some people, send 90 follow-up messages. I'm like, oh my God. So yes. As I say here, no today is not a no forever. Come back in 6 months, read. The composers who handle rejection gracefully are the ones who get called 6 months later. The door you close by arguing is the door you can't knock on again. The door you leave open with warmth stays available. So good, keep in mind. Questions? Any questions? This is a big one, networking. It's important. Okay, questions are really flowing. Hi, Ruben. Nitek here. Not completely related to this workshop. Want to understand your background. Did you go to music school? And also want to know if you have any advice or feedback for a 70-year-old composer who's looking to study music major in college. So I didn't go to music school. I did do a few institutes here and there, which helped me a lot. I think we live in a generation where we have way too many resources out in the open, and it's up to us to use those resources and be disciplined enough to learn them. If I have any advice for a 17-year-old, I started at 17, actually 16, into this world. So I know very well in the place you are. I would say respectfully, first experience what it's like to work in the craft. Start rescoring, start doing real on-hand scoring before you get into a music school, because it's important to know what you're getting into and really struggle. Struggling is the best way to learn. Success is the worst way to learn. If you succeed too much, you'll not learn how it is to struggle. So please rescore. Start finding problems in your DAW that you do not understand. Go to YouTube, analyze it. If you can't afford a sample everything, just find something on the internet. I created a hub like with 150 plus sample libraries. Like there's no excuse to start. Definitely not music school. And most importantly, I do think music school is very valuable, because one thing that you cannot find in common knowledge is the good teachers that have so much knowledge. I have many connections in Berkeley, a lot of teachers that I talk with a lot. And I've gotten, by the way, through Instagram, which is a blessing, through some of my connections, some friends that work in Berkeley, and they connect me with some of their teachers. And I got contacts like those. So I will say music school is an extremely good way to learn other things that aren't as well talked about in the internet. So those two things. Here, there we go. Anthony already says, highly recommend doing rescore. So yeah, I hope that helps. Anything else? All right, cool. We'll get into the next topic. Workflow. This is a very important workflow, or a very important subject. There we go. Why it matters: if you have a client, they agree to work with you, you got the pitching right, you got the talking right, everything right, and you, part of my French, fuck up the way you work with them, they're gonna lose interest, because like, oh my God, this guy is so messy. This guy is not writing the brief down. He is not analyzing well his own score. He's not putting the feedback to practice. What is this? What am I working on in a WhatsApp group? Not the way to go. You find a way to create structure, because structure creates trust, and trust creates safeness. So very important thing to keep in mind. Yeah, as I explained it, WhatsApp chaos. Oh my God. Some people are like they DM me and they're like, hey, I'm losing clients. And I'm like, how are you working with them? It's because they work in chat. That's not the way to work. You want to create a Google spreadsheet. You want to create a Notion database. You want to create something they can hold on to. Score project over WhatsApp or back and forth email threads gets disorganized fast. Versions get lost, feedback gets buried, no one knows what's current. It signals to the director, this person isn't professional, they're just winging it. Think of it like this: surgeon who's brilliant in the OR but loses your paperwork and can't tell you which procedure version you're on. Do you trust him again? No. What a good workflow system looks like. I mean, this is pretty easy to understand, but it needs to, if they need a tutorial to use it, it's too complex, right? A version control, always clear which version or the queue or brief you're working on. Just be very organized in this thing. This is easy to keep in mind, right? Editable briefs, if the director can update the brief directly without sending a new email, having just a shared workspace that both people can access. So yeah. Tools worth knowing. Notion, it's the one I personally use. Super easy to make your own structure, because every person works differently, right? We're all professionals. We all have different ways we like to work with our clients. You can set it up there. It has a little learning curve, but I promise you, this will be your favorite place to work in. Film cues, it's like Notion, but then more personalized for composers. I personally haven't used it, but I still put it here because I've heard a lot of good things about it. So good to keep in mind. Why this impresses clients? Most composers don't do this. Showing up with a clean, organized system signals maturity, professionalism, and respect for their time. It also protects you. When everything is documented, there are no "but I thought you said" moments. This is another very valuable thing. When you're doing revisions, for instance, and you're 7 revisions deep, but they don't want to pay the 7th because you didn't document the 6th, this is where problems lead. So having everything documented leads to trust. It's just a base. Any questions? Mm. For some reason, the Google Meet is lagging. Let me fix this immediately because the questions are rolling in. What is this, guys? Okay, they should be in now. During school, I would recommend to make as many friends in film and music as possible. Many of collaborators today are friends I made in school. Yeah, so true. So true. That's also what music school is about. Most people say, yeah, the knowledge is cool and all, but you can get that in the internet as well. The networking and the friendships are actually what's the best in those type of places. So good to keep in mind. Okay. Part 6, mindset. You can have the best portfolio, the best pitch, the best workflow, and still undercut yourself in how you think. This is a very important thing, guys. You can have a sick pitch, the best website, but if you think little of yourself or you're insecure in the way you present yourself to a client, they'll feel that. And so in the worst case scenarios, they'll misuse that. They'll be like, no, I don't want to pay that. I want to pay less. And they'll feel like you are kind of undercutting yourself. So having a good mindset is very important on presenting yourself to a client because it goes straight to the pitching thing also. So yeah, let me see. Next page. Speak from value, not desperation. Think any type of project, right? You're talking to Spitfire, you're talking to a director for a large film. If you are asking, oh my God, I'm so excited to work on this project. Yes, please, please, I want to compose for it. It feels desperate. And that's not the way of going about it. You are giving a professional service. They want you as much as you want them. So you need to present yourself in a way where they're like, oh yeah, so you're presenting this skill. It's awesome to have you on board, composer. And you as a composer is, oh yeah, cool. I'm super happy to do this for you guys. I'm excited to see where this goes. Let me know if you need any information about myself. Just not showing that you're desperate, showing that you're professional, you're excited to get on the project, and that you value your time as much as you value theirs. Okay. The difference in energy call ends in 3 minutes. Yeah, it's fixed. It's fixed. Okay, cool. Speak from value, not never position yourself for asking a favor. You're offering something generally useful. The difference in energy between I'd love the opportunity and here's what I bring to the project is massive. People feel it. Thing to keep in mind, right? You're not lucky to be considered. You're a skilled professional with something specific and valuable to offer. A plumber doesn't beg you to fix your pipes. They show up, diagnose the problem, and tell you what they can do. Same energy, literally. Positioning your experience well. How you frame your experience matters as much as the experience itself. I did some sound design for a short is way different than lead sound designer for an independent short film project, right? This is a very important thing that I see a lot of people doing on their curriculums or on the portfolio. They're like, oh yeah, I did a little short film here and there. Try to word it as much as possible that it sounds as big as possible. This is called factual bluffing. It's a way to present the project that you did in a way that's bigger. And it's not that you're lying, it's just you're showing an actual value to it to someone that hasn't seen that project, right? I mean, you should really feel proud of the weight of it and shouldn't undercut it. It's a big thing. So wording is important. You're not lying, you're presenting your work at its full weight. This is especially important when you're early career. Own what you've done. This is so true. You have a little amount of projects, so be sure to word it right. This is where you want to shine as much as possible. Going direct to companies. Most big brands use agencies for composer work. Most composers assume that means there's no point in reaching out directly. This is a very important thing. I've said that actually, I think, for every single point, guys. Oh my God. Think about any big client. I say Spitfire in this example because they've been, since I was 16, the dream brand I wanted to work with. And I got to work with them at 18, which was my biggest dream ever. I did a little composition for them And I started with pretty much pitching to Paul Thompson. I found his email in a thread, and I was like, oh my God, I got this email. I got to present myself. I shouldn't be shy. This guy seems friendly in the videos. Let me try to have send him an email. I did. I got received super warmly, and I said, oh my God, of course. Let me send you a few of our libraries. Here you go. Don't think that big companies don't want small creators. They are actually looking for unique little things that they can, very important, invest in. Because for you, they're important, but for them, you're also very important because they're investing in something called a long-term relationship. They invest in you now, they'll have a loyal content creator for maybe the coming 3 to 4 years. So they want you, and you just have to show yourself that you are doing this because you love it, it's your passion, and you want to grow in it. And they'll, trust me, they'll sponsor you. So important to keep in mind. When you do reach out, focus on what you specifically can offer that an agency supply chain cannot, which is, by the way, I'm going to say this, it's just personal feeling. An agency is a very big business thing versus what you can offer is a personal connection, right? A friendship. So always good to keep in mind. Personal attention, fast communication, creative alignment. That's what you can offer. Any questions? Oh, I see many questions actually. From Rishith. Hey Ruben, Rishith here. For making different types of music, how do I explore different types of genres for inspiration? Or where do I start to explore such genres? Good question. I always try to give myself first the hard work, then the easy. So I literally take any track. For instance, if we're doing heavy metal / rock, I take Metallica. I take one of their most complex tracks. And I take that track, load it up in my DAW, and I try to dissect everything that's happening. I try to dissect the melody. I try to dissect the underline. I try to dissect everything. And I do that with not a guitar, a rock guitar. I try to do it with a violin. I try to experiment with it, have fun, and just try to understand what type of melodic ideas they have that I could use in my work. Say you want to learn the genre, like literally, because it's a genre that you want to get into, then I would recommend looking more into YouTube videos, right? And more into forums, more stuff that really explains the technicalities of how to distort a guitar to get the right level so that it's not too muddy and not too clear, right? This is a whole different science. What I'm talking about is more about how to experiment with it to put it more into the classical cinematic work. But again, it's more about what you'd like to achieve with it. I hope that answers your question. Jane Emmert. When do I know I'm ready to look for clients? I feel like I'm still not professional enough with my music. This is a great question, and I think, let me try to phrase this correctly. So you first want to have a good social media presence. This is literally what this whole workshop is about. You want to build something that the client can go to, a good understanding of what type of person you are, a good understanding of what type of work you do so that the website's clean, the Instagram is clean. You want to have good few work examples. Like I said, 6 to 8 is not a lot. You can do this. If you're really fast, you can do this in a week. If you want to take it a bit slower, 2 weeks. Then within a month, let's give you all the time possible, you can start reaching out. Because first of all, you can reach out to students. They're a client. You can reach out to a friend of yours who's a filmmaker, who's filmmaking on their phone. Don't think too big at first. You want to have work experience. With that, you are literally climbing a little ladder. Okay, I did a little work with my friend. That's cool. Now I have a little filmmaking experience because I learned that from him. Plus, I know a bit of sound design. Cool. Now I can show this maybe to a bigger type of project. And I can enlist my name in more universities. So you can reach out to a university and say, hey, I'm a small composer. I know you guys have a film division. Please spread my name with one of your film colleagues and I'll gladly do some work pro bono. It's a good angle. It's the best. It's what I recommend. A slide, yeah, okay, so this is from Anthony White. A slide side shoot from your point, Rishith. I could highly recommend having a wee look at the QTube. Indeed, QTube's amazing. It's great for rescoring. They have so many resources for composers and many genres of film that they share on there. Great for show reels and scoring practice. Totally true. Awesome. Okay, guys, this is the last sheet. If you have any questions about the topics, any of the previous topics, this is the time to write it. First of all, thank you so much for hearing it. I hope it helped. My idea pretty much with these workshops, kind of to inform you, is to create a structure. Right now, I did 2 workshops that are very random but very valuable, right? It are the workshops that I thought would be most value to starting out composers or even intermediate/professionals, which is social media. It can be an endeavoring thing, and presenting yourself to your client, it can be a very scary thing. So I want to create a structure where we can go through this meticulously. So not only content, but also how do you produce to showcase your work to your clients. But I'll inform this on social media. The next one will be more about content creation in depth. How do you create content for brands so that they like your work, so that they start reaching out to you, not the other way around, which I think is one of the most privileged positions to be in, that people reach out to you and you just have to focus on making music. So I'll put this in the next workshop. Let me see if any questions. I'm glad you guys liked it. And yeah, we'll speak on the next one, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Cheers.